If you're anything like me, you've probably got a really grand vision for your book. Maybe it's a sprawling space opera, a story with different civilizations or multiple eras, intricate magic systems, and of course, time travel. It's exciting to imagine how you would weave together all these complex plots and craft an expansive universe. But let me share the best piece of writing advice I have ever received when I was starting out. Don't write your book yet. Yes, you heard that right. The most valuable piece of advice I received was to hold off on diving straight into writing my epic tale. And this guidance is twofold. You want to start with an outline. And I know you hear this all the time, so let me explain why is outlining so crucial. Think of it as building a blueprint before constructing a skyscraper. An outline helps you organize your thoughts, develop your plot logically, and identify potential issues before they become tangled knots in your narrative. It allows you to see the bigger picture and the finer details simultaneously. When I decided to write my first book, I began by crafting a comprehensive outline. This step was transformative. It gave me a clear roadmap of where my story was headed, how my characters would evolve, and what themes I wanted to explore. Outlining doesn't stifle creativity. Instead, it provides a framework within which your creativity can flourish. You don't want to start with a massive epic. So think about this. Writing a book is a significant undertaking, and writing an epic fantasy is exponentially more complex. It would involve world building, a large cast of characters, multiple intertwining plots, a deep dive into the history. Tackling such a project as your first book would be overwhelming. It would probably lead to burnout and discouragement, quite frankly. Start with a smaller, more manageable project. These might be short stories, or a memoir, or just a simpler book with a less intricate plot. So instead of plunging into the elaborate space saga I spoke about before, tell a story that's something familiar, but you can add a fresh spin to it, something that you could handle confidently. With your first book, choose a simple plot so you can focus on actually developing your writing skills without the added pressure of some vast narrative and complicated universe. To make this even easier, you want to keep your scenes intimate. You could ensure there are never more than 2 people interacting at any given time. This helps the first time you're writing a book because handling multiple characters in a scene requires skill, it requires experience, and those are things that most new writers are still developing. By simplifying your focus on the writing and creating compelling dialogue, you can build strong character relationships. And if you ignore this approach and you decide to dive straight into your epic saga with all these characters, intricate plot, extensive world building, you will probably become overwhelmed.
This is not a tip, this is a prescription, trust me. If you don't, you will fall out of balance, split your differential and tip the over. Or worse yet, I've seen this happen, implode.
The sheer scale of the project will lead to frustration, you'll probably abandon the story altogether, and this is something we see all the time with first-time authors. They get lost in their own ambitious ideas, and that leads to unfinished manuscripts. The essence of the advice here is to learn the craft first. By starting small, you'll be able to complete your first book and, more importantly, learn the fundamentals of storytelling. You'll get to experience the full journey of writing, from outlining to drafting, revising, and then finally to a completed manuscript and a published one that you'll get to hold in your hands if you get in touch with us. This process will teach you invaluable lessons about pacing, character development, dialogue, and the discipline required to actually see a book project through from start to finish. And then you'll be able to build on this with the confidence you've gained, the experience you've gathered to work on larger, more complicated book projects. This is the best way to set yourself up for success. My advice to you still stands. Don't write your book yet. At least not that massive epic you've been dreaming about. Start by writing a detailed outline of a simpler story. Make sure it's an idea that excites you, but that is manageable in scope. This approach doesn't mean you're giving up on the grand vision. Rather, you're building the skills necessary to do that vision justice when the time comes. And another way to think about it is you would first run a 10K, then a half marathon before you go and run a full-length marathon. You wouldn't just go from no training and then jump straight in. And trying to write an epic fantasy novel without doing much writing before is like trying to go from couch to marathon. There is a reason the first step when you get into running is a 5K. Consider maybe writing a novella or a standalone novel with a straightforward plot, and focus more on a limited set of characters and settings. This will allow you to develop those characters more and learn storytelling techniques without the pressure of having to manage this expansive universe. It's also great if you can start it and finish it within about 12 months or even less, because you're then going to have this very clear timeline. You'll be able to celebrate milestones along the way, but you'll also have a completed book. And then once you've written and refined this smaller project, you'll be better equipped to tackle bigger book projects as you go. Get started with an outline, choose a simpler story, and just focus on finishing your first book. As they say, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and this approach will set you on the path to achieving your dream of a finished book. If you enjoyed this video, why not learn how I cured writer's block forever in just 5 minutes?